Hi everyone, Mitch Jackson here. I'd like to welcome you to the best of Human.Social, where I use live video to chat with amazing people from around the world who are disrupting industries and influencing change. In today's episode, I share the best of my conversation with TED speaker, software entrepreneur, and the co-founder of Basecamp, Mr. Jason Fried. I hope you enjoy our chat as much as I did, and you can find more conversations at Human.Social and streaminglawyer.com. Enjoy.
And rather than hear me tell everyone what a great book it was, let's go ahead and share Mark Cuban's thoughts about the book. Mark Cuban, who's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks and the co-founder of HDNet and Broadcast.com, said, and I quote, "If given a choice between investing in someone who has read Rework or has an MBA, I'm investing in Rework every time. This is a must-read for every entrepreneur," end quote. So, you know what, if Mr. Shark Tank says we got to read your book, Jason, I guess that's all we really need. Once again, thanks for being on the show. And Jason, why don't you share with everyone your story about how fear led you to
Cool. I hope you guys like
the
this.
Basecamp series of products.
I hope you guys
so
like this.
first of all, thanks again for having me on.
Jason's awesome.
I've been sort of, here's an interesting thing for me because I originally started my business back in '99 because I was afraid of having to go work for somebody else. And in fact, I did work for somebody else. I graduated from college in '96, and I went to work for a guy out in San Diego for a few months, doing website design for him. And 3 months in, I just realized that this isn't what I want to do. I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to work for myself. I was kind of afraid of getting stuck in a place, doing something for someone who we didn't see eye to eye on things. He was a decent guy and everything was fine. We just didn't see eye to eye, and that was scary to me. That like every day I'd be going to work in a place like that, or doing that kind of thing. And so I kind of got afraid. I was afraid of ending up that way. And a lot of my friends ultimately did end up that way. They've been working, and they still do work in jobs they don't really like, but they kind of have to pay the bills, and it's just not a good way to be. So I didn't want to be that way. So anyway, I moved back to Chicago, where I'm from, and I had some freelance clients doing website design that I developed during college. And I started doing more website design, hooked up with a couple other guys, launched a company in 1999. And ever since then, so it's been about 15 years now, I've been working for myself. And it's something I encourage everyone to try to do at least once in their life. It's a very important thing to try. It's not for everybody. Some days I wonder if it's for me, but it's challenging sometimes. But anyway, it's a great thing, and I'm glad I did it that way.
You know, it's funny how whether it's fear or being afraid of working for someone else, having to punch that 9 to 5 clock, for me, Jason, same story. And 29 years later, here I am with my own law firm, and I've been practicing since day one.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome.
You know, it's just great. I love it. But like you said, sometimes you wonder, maybe what are some of the benefits that they really need to look at, thinking long term in making this decision, and why they should probably at least give it a try, assuming their DNA is such that entrepreneurship is something for them.
Yeah, and by the way, I think what you just said at the end is important, because it is not for everybody. And some people know for sure that it's not for them. And that's totally fine. I just think it's sort of if you're on the fence about it, it's probably worth giving it a go. The reason I think it's great is because at the end of the day, I think the most valuable thing you have is time and your attention. And when you work for somebody else, they own your schedule, which basically means they own your time. And so you're expected to do this from a certain time to a certain time every day. And that's just kind of the way it is. And sometimes it's actually most of your day. Sometimes it can go really long. Some people can work 70, 80-hour weeks. And that's just the understanding. So like now, like your life is basically on someone else's schedule. And I have just a hard time with that, because I have so much value for time. And I think it's something that when you're in college, you don't think that much about in terms of like your time, because you think about other things like I want to get experience and I want to do interesting things and I want to work for a big company that's exciting, and those are all super valuable things too. And I would never take anything away from those experiences. But I think as you move on a little bit, you realize how valuable time is. And I think the only way to really, truly get the most out of your time is to own it yourself, is to own your own time and set your own time. And that doesn't mean, by the way, that when you own your own business, you're not working a lot. You do work a lot, but it's your work for yourself, which is just different. It's flat out different than putting your time in extended periods of time for someone else. So again, it's not for everybody. And there's plenty of other valuable things about working for someone else. But for me, schedule is an important part of it for me. And that's what I've decided.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's when you're working for yourself, sometimes it doesn't really feel like you're working. And what I've learned over the years, the success that I've had with my business and my business ventures in my life, what have you, none of that success has been more important than having the flexibility to leave the office at 3:30 in the afternoon or not even come in if I don't want to.
Yes.
And coach my son in Little League Baseball or watch my daughter run track. There's a certain flexibility there that you just can't put a price on. And as you get older in life, you realize how invaluable.
I hope you guys like this. It's just some of the best shows
is.
I've had at Human.Social, and Jason really does a good job.
It is. Now, I will say
talking
that
about some of the issues.
So I find that to be totally true and super important, and I try to extend that to my employees too, because obviously my employees work for me. And they don't work for themselves.
Thank you for
but what can I do as an employer to help them have as much of their schedule as they possibly can? And so, for example, we allow people to work from wherever. So we have people who work for us in 30 plus different cities around the world. They can work from home. They can come into the office, wherever they want to do. They can work remotely. We also give people Fridays off in the summer. So from May through October, they have Fridays off. So they have 3-day weekends,
awesome.
Which is great. People don't have to check in from 9 to 5. It's not about that. If you're more effective working at night, work at night. If you're better in the morning, if you're a morning person, work in the morning. If you need 3 hours off in the afternoon to pick up your kid from school or coach a league, fine. Those things are all fine. So I try and extend those benefits to as many people as I can who work for me as well.
And if they start their own company, how did you develop that frame of mind, that mindset to have that type of flexibility and trust in your business model, in allowing your employees that flexibility, such that I guess you've eventually learned that it works for you?
Yeah.
Correct? And where did that come from? How did you initially get the balls to do that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just about fairness in many ways. Like, I feel like if I it's my company, but if I act like it's my company and I'm different and I'm special, that doesn't work. I just don't think it works. And I wanted to live a certain way. I want to have freedom in the afternoon to do whatever I want to do. I just had a kid, so I have a 6-month-old now, my first kid.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm staying home with my wife sometimes, some days a week, and being with the kid. Like, how can I do that and not allow someone else to do that? It works for me. It just doesn't add up for me. So I've just always felt like fairness is a really important thing. It has if you want people to work hard for you and respect you, you need to do the same for them. And I think it's just unfair.
A lot of value, I think, in this conversation. That's why I wanted to share.
It just doesn't add up for me. So that's how I've always been. I don't know where it came from. Maybe it came from working in some jobs when I was in college and in high school, where I saw that the ownership had a very different perspective on what they were entitled to and what the employees were entitled to, and it probably bugged me. I can't really think back to a specific example, but it probably came from that. And like, if I ever start my own thing, I don't want to treat people that way. So that's how it happened.
It sounds to me like at some point you had one of your why the hell not moments. And I want you to share with the young entrepreneurs watching the show. And you wrote a blog post about what the hell or why not the hell or whatever it might be, I think in Inc. magazine. Can you share that mindset and how powerful it is to helping effect change and help achieving your goals?
I don't know where this came from in me, but I've always just looked, whenever I do something, I always just figure out, like, how can I just poke it a little bit? So it's poke it in a way I'm not supposed to and just see what happens. And what you realize is, like, very, very few bad things actually happen, and a lot of good things happen when you poke the world a little bit. And so the example that I just wrote about, and actually, if you give me a second, I'll go get a copy of the book because I'll actually walk.
Sure, please go ahead.
since we can move the camera since it's on my laptop. So in our book,
are you guys enjoying this? Isn't this awesome?
Most books, you open up most books, and let's see if I can position this. You open up most books, and you have to go through like dozens of pages before you get to the beginning of the book. And our book is like 2 pages in, you get to the beginning of the book. And the reason, so this is the beginning of the book. And the reason why is because most books in the front of the book have acknowledgments, they have a copyright page, they have a cover page, they have like all these extra pages. And when we were writing our book, like I've always hated flipping through a dozen pages to start a book. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why should I have to go through 12 pages to get to the first page? Like, that doesn't work. So now I know you need it. I mean, you don't need, but like a table of contents is valuable. So that makes sense up front and stuff. But like everything else, kind of no. So when we were talking about to our publisher about publishing our book, I said, I don't want any of that stuff, that crap in the front of the book. Like, we need a copyright page because I think it's a kind of a publishing requirement. But let's put that at the end. We need an acknowledgments page. Most people do. We want to acknowledge people who've inspired us. Let's put it at the end. And so like it's a small little gesture to say like, let's put it at the end, but it's something I enjoy doing because the publishing industry, like our publisher's like, well, no one's ever asked us about that before. Like,
I love it.
That's not what you're supposed to do. And I said, well, maybe not, but like, would it hurt? Like, can we do it? And they eventually said, there's no reason why you can't do it. And so we did it. And it's those little things that you sort of, as you pile up those little things and you realize that you can actually change the way things are done, even in a small, tiny way by moving 2 pages from the front to the back, you start to build up the confidence that you can do other things that you're not supposed to be able to do. And layering those experiences on top of each other, eventually you get to the point where you start taking much bolder risks about, and they're not even necessarily risks, they're just like looking at things in a different way and going, I'm not going to do it the way everyone else does it. We're going to do it a better way. And you find that it's a differentiator. It's more exciting. It's more fun. I don't know. It's flat out more fun. And I think that business should be fun. Why not? Why shouldn't it be? And so sometimes doing stuff a little bit differently is fun. And that's what we do.
Well, it's interesting. It's fun to disrupt what everyone thinks how something should be done. And when I read that, I connected with that story, Jason, because I'm a first generation lawyer, blue collar type of family. Once I started practicing, started doing things like all the other lawyers, and I started asking myself, why am I doing this? Why the hell aren't I doing it this way? Why at the beginning of a case do you have to do these 10 things when you really only need to do one thing? And if you do 10 things, you have to bill the client for your time. If I do one thing, it saves the client money and I'm still getting good results. And once you start doing that, you start getting confident and you start seeing your own unique results and your methods resulting in the favorable results that you're looking for. And the more and more you do this, the more brave you get with asking this question and doing things differently than everyone else. It's just an amazing feeling. It's an amazing experience. And I tell lawyers, young lawyers that I mentor, if you're doing things like everyone else, if you're trying cases like everyone else, chances are you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And
I think it's funny that like you and I are in very different businesses, but those fundamental, like, why the hell not questions are applicable. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Another example of this in my earlier days in the business was when we were doing website design for clients. Usually you submit a proposal to a client, and a proposal usually has like dozens of pages, and you outline all your previous work and you talk about all the stuff in your process. And then at the end, there's like the price. Like there's a page at the end that has the price and the time frame. And whenever I've gotten a proposal in my life, I always turn to that page. Because I've already I don't need to look through all the other stuff because I've already asked this person to propose something, so I already know who they are. I already trust them enough to hire them. I just want to know what it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. And so I started hating to write proposals because it's like, oh, I got to write a proposal. It's like, oh, it's going to be 15 pages. It's just going to take forever. I don't like the paperwork.
Couple of questions.
So what if I just started
you guys
cutting
this?
a bunch of
Number
stuff
one,
out?
number two is
and
the
eventually
audio
I got to the point where my proposals were a single page.
Acceptable over Periscope.
It was a paragraph summarizing the project I'm going to do, how long it's going to take, and how much it's going to cost. And I didn't lose business because of it. I don't know if I gained business because of it, but I didn't lose any people. And in my mind, I would have thought, that's not what a proposal is. So if I just submit a page with a price, no one's going to hire me. Well, it turns out people don't care about all those other 20 pages in the proposal. They just look at the price and the cost.
Fantastic.
Or the time frame anyway.
Appreciate it.
So let me just cut all that out. Saves me time, saves them hassle. It also differentiates me because everyone else's proposals are different than mine, and mine will stand out because someone will be like, wow,
awesome.
That's pretty simple. That's exactly what I wanted.
Good.
And
he would be a great.
So anyway, and it also will help me self-select because people who are insulted by that sort of proposal, they won't hire me, which is good because I wouldn't want to work with them anyway.
Exactly.
So, it's like these are little things you can do, and the thing I want to stress is you have permission from yourself to do this stuff. You don't need permission from a school, a program, or whatever to do things in an unusual way. You have permission from yourself, so just go for it and try it, and you'll be surprised by how well it usually works.
Isn't it interesting how you can look at other industries and then take the way they do something and improve upon how they're doing something and bring it into your business, into your profession, and hack your own business in a way that other people in your business have never thought about or done before. Another approach that you use that I want to talk about a little bit, and I don't have a phrase here for it, but it has to do with when I'm asked to be on a board or I'm asked to be part of a company, my initial question, my initial feedback is, will there be meetings? How often do you have meetings? I'm not a meeting guy. I think meetings are a big waste of time. Can you share with our viewers during the Hangout and listeners on the podcast, what are your thoughts with running Basecamp or any business? How do you balance having meetings, being productive, or not wasting people's time with unnecessary meetings? What's your thought process on all that?
So one thing students will realize when they get in the professional world is that meetings reign supreme. There's meetings all the time. People want to get together and sit around a table and talk, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Meetings and managers.
What's wrong with it, I think, is when it happens all the time, and it displaces something else, right? There's only so many hours in the day. You're responsible for getting work done. That's your job, is to get work done. Your job's not to go to meetings. Your job is to produce and have some sort of output. When your day is occupied by meetings, you have no time to do the work. But the work is what you're actually judged on. And so I think they're just unfair. I think the amount of meetings people are required to attend are unfair because it gets in the way of doing the work. And so my feeling is that in most cases, most things can probably be decided by a couple people working together closely, rather than having to pull 8 or 10 people into a room and have a discussion that lasts an hour. And most meetings will last an hour. That's just how they're scheduled. Mm-hmm. But most things can probably be tackled in 15 minutes between a couple people. And we prefer to work that way at Basecamp, where a few people make decisions and that's that. And look, if they struggle with it and they can't come to a conclusion or whatever, then maybe they can pull more people in. And then we can maybe have a more formal moment to sit down and talk about it. But I'd rather that decisions are being made sort of all the time progressively by small groups of people or by an individual, rather than stopping work all the time to have a bunch of people who don't need to be in a room together talking about something they don't all need to be talking about. So that's just my feeling. And I frankly hate sitting around. I hate sitting around for an hour when I know something could be done in 10 minutes. I just hate it. It's just a waste of everything. It's a waste of, it wastes everything. It wastes money, it wastes time, it wastes attention, it wastes it breaks up your day. That's the other thing that I want to mention is that, especially in creative work, you need stretches of uninterrupted time to really get into the flow, just like anything, I think. And when your day is chunked up by meetings, you don't have any time you don't have 3 or 4 hours. I bet if you ask people, and I've asked people this, when's the last time you had 4 hours uninterrupted at work? The people say never. They can't even remember a moment, and that to me is a terrible loss. So, when you have meetings every hour or 2 hours, you just get these small chunks of day, and you can't really be creative and do any good work. So, I don't know. I try to avoid them at all costs. Sometimes we have them. We do have them at Basecamp occasionally, but they're always the last resort rather than the first option, and that's how I tend to think of meetings.
It's what bothers me a lot is when it takes a week and multiple meetings and emails, what have you, to answer a yes or no question.
Right.
And it's not only does it waste everything that you just said, it wastes my life.
Yes.
Waste the life of the other participants in the company. Their life has more value than mine.
Yes.
And that's what drives me crazy. What's your advice? And I know you wrote an article about the fallacy of love what you do. Can you share with our viewers your thoughts on how important it is, if at all, to love what you're doing, and whether or not that's a flexible, gauge depending on where you are in your career or how old you are in evaluating how much you really do need to love what you're doing.
So I'm kind of with you on that, which is that there's a lot of romanticism around finding the dream job and, finding what you love and all that stuff. And like, if you can find that, fine.
Sure.
But don't hold out for it that long, especially when you're getting started. You need to get some experience. You need to get in there, do some work. You need to see what's going on. You need to learn a lot of things. So my feeling has always been take whatever job you find challenging first. It's more about what can I learn here and what's challenging and interesting to me, more so than like what do I love. So for example, like if you love baking, maybe one day you'll start a bakery, maybe, but maybe you can do something else for a while to learn about, food service, or maybe you could do something else to learn about logistics. There's all these other things you could maybe learn that are challenging, interesting, and things you don't know anything about. Sure. You may not love logistics. You may not love food service. You may not love customer service even to start, but like you need to know about those things. So that's the kind of stuff I think you should get into. So for me, it's about what's challenging, what's intellectually stimulating, more so than what do you love. And if you can find all of those things together in one thing, great. But there's just a lot of advice. And what I wrote about in this article was that people who are really successful will often talk about you got to find what you love, you got to do what you love. But I really think it's unfair for them to talk that way because they're sort of romanticizing their current experience. And if they think back to how they got started and what they did, they probably didn't start out doing what they loved necessarily. They grew into it and they found something eventually. But to say that that's what you got to do when you start, I don't know. I just don't buy it. So I think find something that's intellectually challenging, intellectually stimulating, somewhere you can learn from. Maybe there's a really interesting mentor. You meet someone who you think you can learn a lot from. Like that's super valuable. And maybe down the road you find what you love. That's how I would approach it. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're getting your foot in the door. You're starting to meet people. You're starting to develop relationships. You could use the term networking, but the bottom line is all of the above beats laying on the couch watching reruns on 3:00 in the afternoon. That's not going to get you anywhere, right?
No, that's not going to get you anywhere. And by the way, like I don't suggest the opposite though. Like don't do what you hate to do because that's like just going to make you miserable. So that's why I keep coming back to this like challenging, intellectually stimulating, like learn places you can learn. That's really valuable, especially when you're getting started. It's valuable forever, but really valuable when you're getting started. But don't do something you hate because you don't want to show up. You don't want to dread going into work. That's not going to get you anywhere either. So anyway.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's really, really important because if you're in a situation that you can't stand and you don't like, you're not going to come across well. You're not going to develop a good reputation about yourself. And as we get older, we learn that it's a small world, right? Yes. Especially with social and
even smaller than ever.
Even smaller than
Crazy.
Ever. My 15-year-old son tells me that every day. Jason, you're in for a fun ride. This is the best years of my life. My daughter's 20, awesome. My son's 15, and it's these are the best years of our lives. And with social, it's so cool to be able to continue interacting with them, seeing all that they're doing. It's great. Let's talk real quick before I let you run a little bit about marketing. One of the things we talked about on Monday was marketing. And I told the class, I don't even like using the M word. I don't like getting spammed. I don't like seeing commercials on TV or listening to them on the radio. I don't like pop-ups at websites. I just can't stand that stuff. What I do like is relationships. What I do like is building relationships and doing business with people either who I like or who are referred to me from mutual friends. And so I told the class, I know it's a marketing class, but let's talk about relationships. I didn't even want to use the M word. Can you share with us your thoughts about how to market without marketing. And I mean, am I just living in a fantasy land, or is there an approach to use that doesn't necessarily require marketing as we understand it?
Yeah, I think the marketing you're talking about is kind of the marketing I don't like either, which is disingenuous,
in your face
shotgunning of messages to people with no personality, there's no personal connection to those messages, and those are no good. I'm not a fan of those. Do they work? I don't know. Maybe they work, but that's not what I want to attach to my reputation, and that's not how I want to treat people myself. So at Basecamp, we've always thought about marketing as everything that we do. So to me, customer service is marketing, right? So if we treat our customers poorly, that's bad marketing. If we treat them well, that's good marketing. There's no budget. It's not a marketing budget. It's not part of the marketing department. It's just treating people well. Like, that's marketing. Every little error message in our products, like if there's something goes wrong, how do we handle that situation? How do we congratulate our customers if they do something well? Like, all that stuff, that's all marketing. How we speak is marketing. How we share is marketing. How we talk, how we write is marketing. Every experience a customer has with us, they form an impression about us, just like you do with people. And so I think when you start thinking about marketing as this thing that only this group of people do, or only this department does, or those are the marketing people, then you miss the bigger picture, which is that every interaction a customer has with you is marketing. So that's not to say that you can't have great advertising and you can't have great messaging. And I think if you can achieve that, you absolutely should do that. But to separate marketing from everything else you do, to me, doesn't add up. So it needs to be part of everything you do. Plus, you can also potentially, hopefully, do a good job with targeting your message to the right people at the right time. That's like above and beyond just treating people well and doing the right thing.
And a teacher, whether you know it or not, you're still marketing. You're still developing relationships, and you have to keep this in mind. It's a 24/7, very transparent world right now.
Yeah.
And if you do it the right way, you can have fun doing it. That's what's fun about it, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's just, this is the thing. I don't think one of the problems I have with the corporate world in general is that people are one way outside, like at home or whatever, and then they go into work and they get all stuffy and they get like all serious and professional, and they aren't themselves anymore. And like, you need to be yourself all the time. And when you're outside of work, you still represent the business. You still represent yourself. You represent your employer or your employees.
Hey guys, it's Mitch. You guys enjoy
there
the show?
really is
You
no
guys enjoying
separation
Jason,
in that way.
What's your
People
biggest
don't
takeaway?
put a wall up and go, well, he's really nice outside of work, but at work, no one likes to work with him. No, it's like,
in the comments
you're not two different people. You're the same person all the time. And so I think you do have to keep that in mind in every interaction that you have. Are you generous? Are you fair? Are you trustworthy? Those are the things that matter inside and outside of work. And if you treat people poorly outside of work, people are going to hear about that inside of work, and they're not going to respect you, and they're going to have problems with you. So you just got to be a good person everywhere, and do as many, I think, and treat people as fairly as you can all the time. I think that's super important.
For the student that asked me on Monday, well, how do I come across on social? How do I differentiate between being the lawyer at the office and being the guy on the football sidelines snapping Instagram pictures during my son's football game? And what I was explaining to him, Jason, is I'm the same person. I don't try to be one or, it is what it is. If people want to do business with me, and there's plenty of people out there that do, then you have a great connection. If somebody's looking for a stiff-backed, uptight lawyer, then they can go hire someone else.
Right.
Life's too short.
Plenty of them out there too. Right?
From what I've been told, there's plenty of them out there. Thank God they're not in this office. Yeah. Hey, Jason, this has been awesome. Real quick before I let you run, the mindset that we've talked about and that you have, who in your early life experiences, where did you get this from? Is there a single person or a single experience that when you were young that started getting you to think this way? Can you share that with our viewers today?
It's a good question. I think it's a combination of a variety of experiences. So as far as like entrepreneurial spirit, my dad, my grandfather on my mom's side started his own grocery store chain. So I think there's a little bit of blood in there. My dad used to work for someone and then didn't like it and went off on his own when I was younger. And I think that, and he's always been on his own. He's always told me, like, if you have a shot to go on your own, do it. So like that sort of inspired me there. As far as treating people fairly, I think my parents just have always been those people who always, I've just always seen them do the right thing. It doesn't matter what situation they're in. It doesn't matter necessarily what's convenient. It's like, what's the right thing to do? And I think they've really inspired me there. I've also worked for bad bosses. I've worked for bad people. One job I had when I was growing up, the owner of the company was really racist and racist towards certain customers. And like, I kind of couldn't believe that anyone would be that way. And they just didn't care. They just had this entitled feeling about themselves. And like, that really bugged me. I didn't at the time think like, I don't want to be like that person. I just knew that was just not right. And I've also worked for really good bosses who are really thoughtful and really fair, and really understanding, and that influenced me too. So I think it's like, just like everyone, it's a matrix of a variety of different experiences, good and bad, and you kind of form yourself, I think, through that. Plus, just your own sense of, where your own compass is a big part of it too. I've just been fortunate, I think, to be around good people who treat others well, and I've learned from that. It's not like I'm not perfect in any way, but I try to do the right thing as often as I can.
It's interesting you talked about it having a bad boss, and I will tell you, I've had some employment experiences myself, life experiences I would never want my kids to go through. Mm-hmm. But I look at that now and I think to myself, what I experienced was really, really a good thing, because it taught me never to be that way.
Yeah.
And I'll never be that way to somebody else. And as uncomfortable as I was in a particular job with the same type of thing happening, it reinforced in my mind, I'm never going to be that person. So yes, even though I was miserable at the time, looking back, it's made me a better person, a better father, a better human being. So I can totally relate to that. Hey, Jason, this was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. If people would like to reach out, kick the tires on your products, connect with you for interviews, whatever it might be, what's the best way for everyone to get a hold of you?
Sure. So if you're curious about the product, just go to basecamp.com. I'm on Twitter, at Jason Fried. That's Fried. So you can reach me there. You can also email me if you want. So it's jason@basecamp.com. Sometimes my inbox gets a little bit unruly, and so it might take me a while to get back to you, but I do try and get back to everybody who writes me. But yeah, Twitter's short, so it's not, we can't go into depth about things, but I'm checking it often. I'm usually responding there, but email's good too. Any way you can find to get a hold of me is fine, and I'll try and help out any way I can.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the best of Human.Social with Jason Fried, and Mitch Jackson. I'm going to do more of these from interviews that I've had at Human.Social. We've got some amazing guests over the years, and I'd like to repurpose it and share it with you. So I've got some clients coming in, but if you like this idea, reach out and let me know so that I can take the time to put some more best of interviews together. You can connect with me. All my contact information is at Twitter, at Human.Social, at streaminglawyer.com, and my Twitter handle is at Mitch Jackson. Thanks, you guys. I have to run. Make today a masterpiece. Bye-bye. Adios. Maybe. Let's see. We'll get it. Okay, bye-bye, guys.